Welcome to KPU CloudLab for the incline track. In a different video, we've shown you how to connect to the CloudLab, and in this case we're using something called Mikogo, and I've put in my session ID number earlier and it's showing here, and this is showing that I have control of the experiment, and also this little mouse button here is showing control. You may see things moving around, and that is just either it's resetting itself, which it does so it doesn't go off on you with the battery cutting out, or it might be the operator working on things in the lab. But generally, if you're patient, you can do whatever you want once you've got control. So I'm going to go through the camera controls and how to collect the data and some troubleshooting tips, and do this as quickly as possible. Hopefully everything will be clear by the end. Notice down here we have some camera controls. There are two main cameras. Camera 1 has 6 different positions and 6 different presets. 1 is what we see now. That's kind of the overview. 2 is the launcher, and the camera will actually just zoom into the launcher, and that's the electromagnet that's holding the card in place and lets it go. That's the card up there. 3 is the right view, and this will show you the other end of the track if you want to look at that, and there is a place where that might be interesting. 4 is the sign, and we will need this, but I'll come back to it later. And 5 is the protractor, and 6 is a protractor zoom. We aren't necessarily going to use the protractor and protractor zoom because there's a better way to measure the angle, which I'll talk about later. But I can use this just to show you that you can zoom out on any of these views and also tilt the camera in different directions. So feel free to play around with all of that. For the data we'll be collecting, I'm going to start with camera preset 1 in main camera 1, and that's the overview. And now I'm ready to change the height of the track, so I grab this slider here and I can pick anything along this level, and then we'll measure that later. The next thing to do is to hit the go to position button up here, and you'll notice the track goes up after I hit this. There it goes. And once it gets to the position that you chose, it shouldn't automatically launch like that, but sometimes it does. And this is probably good to show you what happens if something happens like that. So when that happens, you have to recapture the cart. And every time you want to recapture the cart, just bring the slider all the way down to the bottom, hit go to position, and you'll see that that brings the track way down on the left hand side. Once you've got that, then just hit the capture button down here, and that will ensure that the card is captured with the electromagnet. So that's one of the troubleshooting tips there. So I'm going to try again. Just move the track up to some level, hit go to position, and hopefully it won't automatically launch this time. And if it does, I know how to fix that. Okay, so that looks good. Before I release the cart, which is this button here, I'm going to want to set my graphing up. So just hit the graphing tab. You won't be using this track range for anything, but when you hit the release button, the cart will be physically released, and you'll see it moving down the track and the graph forming in real time. Now, this is a DT graph, so it is a parabola, and that's what you'd expect for a cart going down a ramp. There's some extra bits here which are kind of interesting, and that's the cart bouncing off of the bottom of the track. And you can watch that happen if you want in camera preset 3. Now it stopped, but if you were looking at that when it was collecting data, you'd see the cart bouncing back and forth off the end rail here. Once you've got that, then hit the velocity time graph and record your slope, which is 0.213645, and the units for that are meters per second, because those are the units of the y and x axis, which are meters per second squared, which is what you'd expect for acceleration. The next challenge is to measure the angle of the track. For that, we are going to need the sign. So I'm going to click the 4 button and look at this sign. Here you have the horizontal distance to the ruler along the track, or along the horizontal, and the level position that has to be calibrated by the person who sets up the apparatus. So you can record those numbers and deal with them later. The other value that you're going to need is the height of the track that you selected. So make sure that you do this after you've collected your acceleration data. And remember that main camera 2 only has one preset, and that's this. For this, you just read off the level here, and I am reading, in this case, 20 centimeters. It's just under 20.4, so I'm going to say it's 23.9. This is quite a precise reading because the edge of the track is really sharp and it lies really nicely on this ruler. So try and read that to as much precision as possible. And from all of that data, you should be able to complete your lab. Remember that there's a chat button if you're using Makogo up here, and you can just talk to the operator at any time. Okay, good luck with the lab.